Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today I am speaking with Brian Heilig. Brian is a husband, a father, and the author of the book Breathe, Eat, Poop, and Grow. His book highlighting his journey as the father of a micro preemie. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being here, Nicole. It's been
Before we get started, I always ask an icebreaker question. So this is the one I created for you. Share one lesson in life, or share one lesson life has shown you so far.
Trust in God.
Yeah, especially with your journey.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So tell everybody about yourself.
Okay, so originally from Chicago, met my wife in high school 34 years ago. We moved in together in 95 and we've been together ever since. This year we'll be celebrating 23 years of marriage.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We now have two small children. Grayson just turned 7 and Nathan is 4. He'll be 5 in October. And we have our little dog, Slinky. She's a mini golden doodle and she's about 2.5.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So talk about when you first found out you were pregnant and how that whole journey kind of went.
So prior to finding out when we were pregnant, it was kind of like we didn't want kids. Let me say that. I was very scared and reluctant to have kids just because I always wanted everything to be perfect. You know, we have to have the right amount of money and we have to have the stability and the job and all of that. Yeah. And we just delayed until it was then not happening because we said, well, let's just try to have a kid, not thinking anything, just not being protective. But then noticed it wasn't happening year after year after year. And we're like, oh, wow. So then we got a little bit more serious because we were in our late 30s. And so Dianna said, hey, look, let's get checked out. And we found out that she was producing less eggs and they were not, as strong, I guess. I don't know. Right. Weaker eggs. And so then we were presented different options. What can we do about it? And the one option that we chose to do in the States at that time was IVF. So we went through that whole process. I mean, that's just insane for women. Guys definitely cannot handle that. The daily shots in the stomach and just everything that's about it. Yeah. And we did the egg extraction, and then a couple days later, the embryos were supposed to be formed, and then we're going to do the day of implantation. And we were ready to go in the morning, and the doctor called and said, listen, don't come. None of the embryos made it. So that was a very difficult time. We just didn't really think that we were going to have kids. But then a friend of mine at work said, hey, listen, I don't know if you know, but we have 3 children, and we did the foster program here, and we were in South Florida at the time, Broward County. We did foster to adopt. And so we never even thought that was a thing. We didn't know anything really about fostering. And we then found ourselves going through the 6-week fostering program, which was that could be a whole nother podcast. But we became foster certified. And then within a week, they said, hey, listen, we have Eva. She's 7 days old. Do you want her? We said yes. And we found out very early on that we weren't going to be able to keep her for very long, just because the parents, they did something that wasn't good, but wasn't, what you're thinking, like foster care program. So, but we did have her for 5 months. And when we gave her back, it was very difficult. And that was pretty much it. We're not going to have kids. It's just over. Let's just, continue on with our lives. And then I had friends of mine who I had worked with in Mexico. And they said, hey, listen, we're getting the band back together. We're going to open up a resort or get the resort going in Cancun. Do you guys want to come? Because we lived in Puerto Vallarta for several years, working for the same company years before. Mm-hmm. And I presented the option to Dianna, and she said, I don't know, but our friend that lived there was actually the acupuncturist for an IVF doctor who had very high success rate. So Dianna said, listen, I'll go if we do IVF, if we do it again. I'm like, babe, that's on you. I'm down, but shoot, if you can handle it.
Yeah.
So we did. We started the IVF process in Mexico, and lo and behold, she gets pregnant. So when
Ooh.
we found out, so now I'm answering your question. Can you imagine?
Yeah, no.
So,
Thank you for the background, because I really didn't know that much of the journey, but yeah, thank you.
yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Just to get the scope of it.
Yeah.
We were completely, I mean, I have a video of when we found out and listen to the heartbeat of the baby and everything. I mean, it was just, we were ecstatic, you know,
Yeah.
but because we were older and because we had already done one round of IVF that didn't work, and the doctor, you know, basically had Dianna on bed rest essentially from the beginning. And everything was going great until we got just over halfway, and she developed severe preeclampsia, and
Mhm.
the doctor said, listen, we've got to deliver the baby to save Diana's life.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, what, how is this even you know, you don't put on your birth plan premature birth, you know. So it was, and that's where the story just goes
And
absolutely.
to highlight, when you are super young having children, or in the older stages, you are actually at a greater risk to develop preeclampsia.
Mm. We didn't know any of that. Also, if you do IVF, that's another thing that, you know, other complications, and that could be one of them. So, and we didn't even know what preeclampsia was. You know, her blood pressure just shot up, and she was, you know, vomiting, and we just didn't know what to do. So we were thrown into this world of preeclampsia, prematurity, you know. And the thing is, we were in Mexico, and in the hospital, when you get to that level in the hospital, nobody speaks English, and we didn't speak Spanish,
Oh,
especially medical Spanish.
yeah.
And so that was another set of issues, because we really didn't know what was going on, you know.
Right. So did you know what was going on with her, or were you at this time, as you're experiencing it, in the dark and just trying to figure things out?
We were pretty much in the dark. We did have her OBGYN who delivered Grayson, who was with her and us the whole IVF process. And he speaks very good English, but you know, he isn't the NICU doctor. So we could help get a little bit of an understanding about what was happening with Dianna. But as far as Grayson goes, we just, I mean, we were completely in the dark for
Yeah.
the
Do
whole
you
time.
remember how many weeks she was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When she started this, we were well into the 25 weeks.
Yeah.
And then when she delivered Grayson, she was right at like 26 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he ended up being 1.5 pounds and 12 inches long.
Oh.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so we're in the NICU in Mexico, and literally just have no idea what's happening. And Diana could not see him right away because she was dealing with her own issues. So it was definitely not fun. And that's where, you know, I was just at church today, and I think, you know, I kind of got this kind of message that, as I'm speaking about this, I'm going to encourage people to, you know, get with God before you need him.
Yeah.
Because it could make the journey a lot, at least a lot more, um, I don't know. There's some kind of peace around that if you have, you know, that knowing that
Yeah.
everything is in.
Yeah. So can you talk about how because we don't get the dad's point of view a lot of times. Like sometimes there's moms that are willing to come forward and share what they're thinking, what they're experiencing as first time moms going through something scary like this.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how, as a dad, what that's looking like for you as you're receiving the news, as you're kind of take us through that journey, if you wouldn't mind?
Absolutely. It is definitely, you know, the dads have to keep it all together, and they're the ones, you know, that, you know, carry the day and all that kind of stuff. But it's a disaster. I mean, you know, the pressure, and you want to be there for your wife, you want to be there for your son, but, you know, I don't know how to do life without my wife. and to be able to have to go see Grayson without her for the first time. I didn't even want to go, which sounds crazy, but I didn't know what to say, how to act. And, Dianna is funny because we didn't really talk about that. It was all about Grayson forever. And when she finally read the book, which was the last possible edit that she could possibly make any changes, she read the book and didn't understand the things that I did and went through. And, the times where I was in the hallway and I look at there's the ICU entrance and there's the NICU entrance, and my whole
Yeah.
world is on that one floor, And again, just trying to keep it together. I tend not to ask for help. I try to figure out everything on my own. But if I could speak to the dads right now, or really parents, but just dads in general, uh, ask for help and take it, accept it, because we need it. No matter how tough you are, when you are in that situation, you can't imagine the anxiety and the stress and trying to keep up with that and show a good face. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It eats you up inside. I didn't sleep for like 4 days straight because I just was trying to contemplate how to fix everything. I couldn't fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because as men, especially as in the household and in the family, you want to make it better for the family, for the baby, and for your wife.
Yeah.
Wow. That's heavy.
Yeah, you always want to fix the problem. You want to, like you said, make it all better. And, finally at some point you got to throw up your hands and go, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. And, where do you turn?
Yeah. Yeah. So when Grayson was born, what kind of hurdles were you facing?
Uh, well, oh man. The first was the fact that he was born at 26 weeks. And I didn't find out till later that the percentage of babies born in Mexico at that gestation is a low percentage of survival.
Oh,
And we were in the one of the best hospitals in Cancun. We had, in my opinion, the best possible doctor that we could have for Grayson. And it wasn't until we shared our message and went public that we realized from other NICU nurses around the world that the NICU in Mexico, they were very limited on the care that they could give Grayson because of the technology. So there is no incubator. And again, I've never been in a NICU before. It's not in your birth plan. So I didn't realize that him being in a little box with saran wrap around it and a heat lamp wasn't normal. I
oh
didn't.
wow. That was your incubator.
Yeah, they don't have a proper incubator.
Oh
And
my
they
goodness.
just don't. And
Probably
that,
a good thing you didn't know.
say it again.
Probably a good thing you didn't know that that wasn't normal.
Yeah, I mean, in the moment, we were just trying to be there for Grayson. But once these nurses, thank you, were put their because some of them would say, I don't want to intrude, I don't want to overstep, but if you can move even the position that he was in wasn't necessarily the best position because he's supposed to be inside the womb.
Right.
His legs aren't supposed to be spread open, flailing all over the place. He's supposed to be, in that fetal position, right?
Yeah.
So thank you to the nurses because they started to open our eyes. And then our dear friend, Devin, he started researching like he was going for his PhD on how we could actually transport this child, which was unfathomable at that point, but we did end up transferring him after 21 days to Miami.
Oh wow.
And the NICU there it was completely night and day.
Wow. Wow. So can you talk about what it was like to plan for transfer, how scary that was? What were you thinking about? Did your wife get to be transferred with?
So all of that, yeah, when we first even heard the idea of transporting this little tiny little guy because he lost weight, after he was born a little bit.
Yep.
It was just, how do you make that choice as a parent? Because all you're thinking of is if we move him, he's gonna die. If he stays here, he's gonna die. Like, what do you do? It was one, oh man, it was one of the most difficult things that we ever had to do. Dianna and I were very much together on it, talking it through. We spoke to her doctors in Mexico, and they were able to speak to the doctors in Miami, and because they speak Spanish in Miami very well, and so they were going back and forth, and what they deduced was that for Grayson to have the best possible chance, that it would be best to move him. But then it was, well, how do we move him? I mean, I don't know anybody with a jet that can transport a child, right? And unfortunately, that world, we found out, was very scammy, very shystery. It was all about, give me the money and then I'll tell you the details, because they're preying on you in your most vulnerable state. But luckily, the Miami hospital had their transport team that they worked with, and they were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it was just like another day in the office to them. Where we're seeing this transport happen was, I mean, I filmed it, I took pictures, I wrote about it specifically in the book, but it was otherworldly. It was crazy. And the doctor in Mexico, he was so fascinated by their mobile equipment that was light years beyond his equipment. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So they're doing all this stuff with nothing, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I showed the Miami doctors and nurses the pictures of the NICU and of the tools and the equipment that they had, and one guy, he goes, "Wow, this is crazy," because in school I remember reading about the way it used to be and the tools they used to have, like decades ago,
Right.
And that's how it is in Mexico. And you're thinking, like, it's Cancun,
Right. So is it because it's so expensive for them that they can't get their hands on these materials and these tools?
And that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that, and I don't have an answer. I really don't. We had another friend of ours in Puerto Vallarta. Same thing. Baby was born extremely premature. Same kind of equipment, same kind of limitations. I mean, and really part of the mission that for us is, by doing these talks and by writing the book and everything, and all net proceeds of the book go toward this, is helping put proper incubators in the Mexican hospitals, because I could see babies come in and babies would leave because it's a private hospital. They had to go to like a different lower level hospital. And I looked at the doctor and he was just like, shaking his head and sad, because he knows what's going to happen. And unfortunately, the babies just don't make it. So we want to get a proper isolate there and call it the G unit for Grayson.
Yeah. And Grayson sounds like he was being watched over and is very lucky to be here.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, the doctor, actually, Dr. Campos in Mexico, when we first saw Grayson, we had then learned that he himself called in a priest to pray over Grayson. Like, it was just incredible, But yeah, when you're going through it, you don't know what to do. You just drop to your knees and pray, because what else can you do? And so yes, we very much, and it's easier to discover the ways in which God had orchestrated everything after the fact.
Yeah. You never see it during.
No, never during.
All you can see is like, what can I do to make this stop and be normal and better, and my baby be healthy and home and all that stuff.
Exactly.
How long was Grayson in the hospital for?
So he spent 21 days in Mexico and then another 84 in Miami. So 105 days in the NICU.
Oh my gosh. So when they first transported Grayson, did your wife get to go with him?
So no, we had the plane that he was on was tiny. I mean, it's the smallest plane I've ever seen, but it was also super fast. It flew at 45,000 feet, but you never had the ear pop thing, so it was super pressurized for Grayson, you know. And we got from Cancun to Miami in 45 minutes. Like, I mean, we were clipping. But Dianna, we had our dog Cha-Cha at the time in Mexico, and we couldn't put everybody on the plane, so she had to. She said she couldn't handle it being there, you know, without me on the plane. So she's like, you go. So like, I can handle it, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, and she had just had a baby and all the things.
yeah,
Yeah.
she couldn't lift anything. So I had to, you know, I could only bring a backpack in like one bag, you know. But so I had friends and stuff come and help. Her mom was there too. So her and her mother and Cha-Cha with our friends kind of helped her get some of the luggage back. But yeah, so it was the next morning she arrived.
Oh, wow. But
Yeah,
still, how scary, 'cause for a mom, you wanna be there to make sure everything is, gonna go off without a hitch. You know what I
exactly.
mean? Especially how touch and go it was to transport him. What were you thinking when you were on the plane, like, getting to the hospital?
It was, I had to like take pictures and videos and to almost distance myself from just the sheer stress. And I think there's three nurses, or I don't know if they're doctors, transport people that came. There was one that was the main person that she was never took her eyes off Grayson, and the whole time she's typing, like, even though we were in the air, she was sending Miami messages second
Yeah.
by second. Then we had the other nurse who was just basically doing whatever she said. And then we had one nurse who was just sitting by my side. I think his whole job and responsibility was to keep me calm because he would talk about
Probably.
random stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't care, but stop talking to me. But he wouldn't. So I think that was kind of all planned on purpose. But it was completely terrifying. I think that, you know, once we got up off the ground, the doctor, which I don't want to give it away because it's in the book, but the doctor, it's very detailed in the book, but the doctor that was next to me, the nurse that was next to me, was just telling me certain things that I realized in that moment that we are making the right choice, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So it was intense.
That's a lot, especially for first-time parents.
Mm-hmm.
This is your first ever experience, and it's not ideal.
Not ideal.
So
Like,
scary.
what is happening? You know, we're what, how old are we at that point? 41? Yeah,
Yeah.
41.
Oh, wow.
So
Man.
it was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So what inspired you to write the book?
We had at one point in our journey, there was too many people to update individually, so we chose to use Facebook as our platform and went live to try to update everybody.
Yeah.
And thank goodness we did that, because that ended up going worldwide, and that's where the nurses reached out and everything. But in one of our lives that we were when we were kind of giving updates, it was so unbelievable, this story that was happening. People would tune in like the Truman Show, you know, what's going on with the Heilegs today. And
Yeah.
our friend, she said, hey, you should write a book, this is just that crazy. And in the moment you're like, haha, yeah, right. But something got in there, seed was planted. And then when we would tell other people after the fact about our story, they were like, wow, that's like a movie, or that's like a book, or what have you. And so then it was like, you know what, I'm going to write the book. But I procrastinated for about 3 years. And finally, we were actually at church, and the pastor said, hey, have you ever asked what God wants you to do with your life? And I never heard that before. I was like, well, that's different. No, it's all about me and what I want, you know? And he goes, yeah, let's try it. So close your eyes and just ask. And I did. And for me, is instant. It's write the book, speak about it, transform lives. And so literally the next day I wrote the first word to turn into the first sentence, first paragraph. And here we are. It took me 26 months to write this book,
Yeah.
but it was, I mean, I'm not an author. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's a memoir. So it's just our pure situation and journey. And I didn't account for all the tears, but also the healing that went into this process of writing it out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so now I'm in phase 2, which is speaking about it, which here we are, and I
I love
appreciate
it.
you, Nicole.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. So, how much did Grayson weigh when he got to go home?
So from Miami, gosh, the exact weight, I'm going to get it off Dianna. Dianna will be able to tell me. But he was maybe 5 pounds,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah, super tiny little guy. You have to go through all these.
A sack of sugar.
Yeah. Think about that. It's crazy. And 5 pounds, I was like, wow, he's 5 times bigger,
Yeah.
than when he was
Yeah. So,
born.
did he have any health problems after, or was it smooth sailing finally for y'all?
So thank goodness, thank God, the 3 big things for preemies is brain bleeds, retinopathy, and then their lungs. And luckily, he never had brain bleeds. He had slight retinopathy. I think I'm saying that right, but that did not turn into anything, and his lungs were, a-okay. When he was about 2 years old, Dianna noticed that he was a little different, and I was like, okay, well, yeah, he's been in therapy his whole entire life, so because of the prematurity, he's behind.
Mhm.
But she was like, no, it's something else. And finally, at 3 years old, he was diagnosed with autism, ADHD. He's got sensory processing disorder. Like a lot of parents want vowels or whatever, letters after their kids' names, MD. But we don't have those. We have different letters. So it's been interesting to say the least. But that then spurred more therapy. So he's literally had speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy his whole entire life, even till today. But he just turned 7 last week, and he is super amazing kid. I mean, he's verbal, he's very intelligent, he loves to read. He literally wins the hearts over of anybody that he meets, and so he just struggles with all those other neurological things that we don't understand, but we try to just have patience with him and work through it with him. So
I love it. Does he know he's a miracle?
no, not yet. Not
Are
yet.
you gonna tell him?
I mean, he is so great because, there's an option where you could go onto my site and purchase. If you're in the US, you could purchase a book and have Grayson and myself sign it. And so it's fun because I say, hey, Grayson, you need to sign some books. And he comes and he sits down, he gets his little color pencil and he puts his name,
Oh,
So it's really special. And he knows that this is kind of like his book. I mean, his picture is on it with Diana's hand, his hand and Diana's hand, but he hasn't grasped that concept yet.
yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. It's so good to hear that he's doing well
Yeah.
because,
Bless.
a lot of people don't talk about what preemies struggle with. It's not just coming in, it's also developing, and
Yeah.
how long that sticks with them. So good for you for bringing that to the public, because I think a lot of people go through it. They think it's just them or they're in a limited group.
Yeah.
They don't realize they actually have supportive parents who've been through it.
Yeah. And that's, part of this whole thing is when I tell people, they say, what's your NICU advice? And I'm like, look, stay on the roller coaster. Number one, take care of yourself the best that you can. Take advice, but also, take the help, accept the help, take it, but also be in communication with the community, because no 2 NICU journeys are exactly the same, but we're all bound together by the NICU.
Oh, wow. I love that. I love that. So do you do and go to any like NICU events or anything like that?
So more at this moment, I've been reaching out to all the online communities, and helping where I can there. that is now part of step 2, which is to be able to go to NICUs. And I mean, I'm in Orlando now, that's where we live. So Winnie Palmer is just the most incredible, one of the most incredible NICUs in the country. And so I have a connection there. I want to go back to the Nicholas Hospital too in Miami where he was and see if we can, help out the parents there. But yeah, just to be able to let them know they're not alone. And, it's much easier 7 years later to look back on it than when you're 7 days into it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Did you find that after everything, like Grayson was home, that you had any struggles with your feelings of the experience? Did you have like any trauma responses or anything like that?
I didn't hear the last word you said.
Did you have any trauma responses from the experience, depression, anything like that?
Absolutely, 100%. I never believed, and I'm just being transparent, and I never believed in PTSD.
Mhm.
I always thought it was just a thing that you say because whatever, but oh my gosh, total PTSD. I mean, it could be that I hear a weird alarm noise and it triggers me to the noise back in the NICU, like it could be we're watching a show and it happens to be about preemie, yeah, I mean, we were watching Good Doctor. I mean, talk about a double whammy. So he's autistic, and then they had preemies come in, with issues. And I mean, I look over at Dianna, she's looking at me, we're crying, but
Yes.
and it comes from nowhere. And also to speak to your specific question is, yeah, a year after I was I didn't want to leave them. I didn't want to leave Diana. I didn't want to leave the baby. I felt guilty when I did. I felt guilty to go to work. I was completely unmotivated to work. It was a major struggle. I mean, depression for sure. Just the whole thing. You get to this like, why me, and how do I snap out of it? And
Yeah.
I wish I had that answer for people, because I think for me anyway, it just literally took time.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize going through something like that, there is a response after the fact. If it's like being an OCD parent that's overly protective and won't leave their child for years and years, you hear of these people that have postpartum OCD and things like that, and it's comes from experiencing trauma during the birth. And I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people realize that. Did that cause any problems for you all when you were first home, or were you able to recognize it and kind of work on it?
You mean between Diana and myself?
Yeah, just I mean, as a family
Yeah.
unit. Mhm.
Yeah. I think that Diana and I have worked very hard through the years and through our marriage at communication.
Good.
So, and doing it on purpose. So I think that is what really helped us through this situation, because sure, there's times where we both just want to be in our own thoughts, but that's also very dangerous, you know. So luckily we were able to communicate throughout and just let each other know, listen, I'm not doing well, what do you need? Do you need me to just listen? Do you need me to go away? Like, do you need me to just sit? What do you need? And we would both kind of go through that for sure. But luckily our marriage, if anything, it became stronger.
I love that. I think that the problem lies sometimes in couples is when you stop communicating
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
asking those questions. What do you need? Do you want me to go away? And not being offended.
Right. Yeah. No, no, no. Look, I get it. Yeah. Just leave me
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for highlighting that, because I don't think that we talk enough about that being an okay and accepted response of saying, just leave me alone
Yeah.
for just the
And,
day.
and like you said, and being okay with
Been
it.
through a lot.
Yeah. Cause it's like, the other aspect you're reminding me is when you're in the NICU, there's this level of safety and security. If anything happens, I got monitors, I've got doctors, I've got nurses, and then you go home he had a monitor around his chest, around his torso, and it would be this deafening siren sound if he stopped breathing, because that's what preemies do. They forget to breathe because they're supposed to be in the womb. And so, there is no real sleeping. I've heard of newborn, like new mothers and fathers watching to make sure that their healthy, perfect baby is breathing. Well, the NICU babies is just a whole nother level, because it's almost like you're waiting for the sirens to go off because that's what you're used to. But it's scary to leave the NICU. Super scary.
I bet.
You don't know what to do. You don't know what happens if something happens.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's probably a whole nother podcast as well. So, Brian, what are your plans for the future now that the book is written? Because you still have so much to do.
Yes.
With the speaking and transforming people's lives. So, what does that look like for you?
I am being, how can I say this? So typically I always am this person that has to make things happen. And I'm participating in like you and I mean, we just talked to each other like yesterday, I think, or the day before, but it was like, I read what you posted or whatever. I can't even remember, but I was like, okay, here's my situation. Maybe we'll do it. I feel like I'm being led right now. I do have one speaking an engagement in August for a Rotary Club that's very active. So hopefully that'll start to get things going. My actual daytime job is I am a sales trainer and I speak in front of groups. So it's, kind of, it's just going hand in hand essentially. But I think moving forward now we're at the point where, okay, the book's been out for, 4 months. I am already having an enormous outreach of write the second book, because there's a lot more to say. But also it's now time to reach out to NICUs and churches and so forth. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm also wanting to create the audio version, and it's just so happened, I'm not trying hard at trying to make things happen, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think sometimes it takes its own journey and just you have to follow along with it. So yes. I like that. It's very authentic unfolding.
Yes, exactly. Like I'm at this place of, okay, I'll go here. Okay, I'll go there. It's just, I've never had that before. So I'm just trusting in God and the calling that he gave me to pursue avenues. Like I did a podcast interview and I said, I want to do the audio version. And he was like, oh, well, all you need is this exact microphone, this exact software, find a place where it doesn't sound like you're in a bathroom. And then,
I suggest, yes.
Yeah. And then send me the audio. I'll put it together. I was like, yeah, perfect.
Nice. See, it's all aligning. That's awesome. Exactly. That's when you know that it's because you were asked in church.
Exactly.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it's so much, it relieves so much pressure, you just answer the call.
Yeah. Answer the call. I love that. A lot of people, I think they get the call is knocking on the door and they don't answer the call. But when you answer the call, everything just kind of happens.
Yeah. And I think, the vision I see, I mean, again, I'm not, what's the word? I'm not attached to my vision. I'm just doing what I'm being called to do. Right. And I think that, but the vision that I ultimately see long term, or not even that, just whenever the time is, being able to speak on stages all over the country, all over the world, and have that be my thing to then transform many people's lives in whatever capacity that is. If it's premature parents, or if it's just anyone who maybe has lost their faith. I mean, it's crazy because Amazon, I didn't realize this, but from the reviews of the book, they created through their AI technology kind of a synopsis, and it's so crazy because what their AI tools are saying about the book is, restoring faith in humanity, bringing people closer to God, restoring their faith in God, like all these things that are the calling. It's so crazy.
Look at that. Look at that. I love that. I am getting a book signed by you and Grayson because I have.
I love that. Thank you.
And so, how do people find the book?
So it's, if you go to my website, it's my first name, last name. So BrianHeilig.com, BrianHeilig.com. You can go then, it'll link you either directly to Amazon, or if you wanted the signed copy, and again, you're in the US, then it'll give you that option as well. We use Stripe, so everything's,
Yep.
real. It's not like, send me a GoFundMe or what have you. It's all, separate bank account I have and all that. But or social media, just my name, Brian Heilig. If you just Google Brian Heilig, I think you can find my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Instagram. I'm TikTok. I'm still getting. I'm old, all right, for TikTok. So, but that's micro preemie dad.
Aw, I like that. I like that. So, I had a question on the tip of my tongue and I lost it. I lost it. I lost it.
We were talking about the website signing of the book.
Yep. It was something else besides that, but maybe I'm just not meant to ask that specific question.
Okay. Hey.
Do you see yourself making a podcast of your own?
That's so interesting. 2 people now, you're the second person and that have said to do this. And I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I don't really know where to begin. And, I guess why he said, listen, you could have NICU nurses, you could have NICU doctors, you could have, NICU hospitals. There's all these different avenues for ways. But I guess I just never looked at a way to reach people for me to have a podcast. I don't know if that,
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I can see you as a host hosting other dads maybe to tell the story, or moms and dads, or just NICU journeys in general. Who knows?
Hey,
but
I'm open.
NICU actually reminded me what my question was. My question was, what can we do? Because all the proceeds for your book go to incubators. What can we do in the United States if we feel like we want to help in the situation where a lot of these hospitals do not have the tools? Babies are not surviving because there's no tools. What can we do?
So I think that, let me just get there. I mean, I've researched the money that it takes, and that is upwards of, just for the actual unit, it could be as much as $35,000. Okay. So now how the heck do we get it to Mexico? Like, all that's it's going to happen, but I don't know how yet. But I think if we look at the money is one thing, but being able to reach the right people that align with this concept and this message and this calling, I think is more in my mind, or my opinion, I feel more of a streamlined way to do this. In other words, I know the resources are out there. I know the people are out there. I just need to get to them to have everything come together and create this. So it would be, what other podcasts do I need to be on? What speaking stages do I need to be on? What connections do you have and your people have to NICUs that might be able to help this cause? I reached out to the NICU that Grayson was transferred to, and someone said, hey, listen, we have incubators that are used, and we're getting the new updated ones. So maybe that's a possibility to give a used one. I mean, it's better than
this is what I'm saying. There's got to be medical equipment out there that's just laying there.
Yeah, exactly.
In a hospital. So how do we get the word out? Brian, you and I are going to have to talk a little bit more, because I used to do booking management for a motivational speaker to get them on stages. Now,
wow,
I can help assist in doing some research and sending you to the places you need to get. And hopefully someone listening will hear. But if there's a hospital out there who has equipment just chilling out, not doing anything, that's used, I think used is better than nothing.
Exactly. It's better than a box with a saran wrap.
Thank you. And that's what I was fixing to say. Yes, it's better than that. Thank goodness it was enough to keep your son alive for 21 days. But
Sorry, real quick. That is a testament to the doctor in Mexico, because the NICU doctors in Miami said, listen, whew, and this gets me emotional. Whew, so it's the doctor in Mexico kept him alive, and here he'll thrive. But based on the equipment that he had, it's like a miracle.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yes. Wow.
But
Wow.
yeah, so that's it. The connections, I think, is going to be, that's kind of how I've been very fortunate throughout my entire life with everything and anything, a job or whatever. It's always been, even this situation, the NICU nurses are friends that did all the investigating of how to even transport a 1.5-pound baby. It's always been, people that are willing to help the bigger picture, the bigger cause. And so I just have the belief and the faith that it's going to come together, and maybe, we're together. We can work, you and I, and your connections. And I just know it's going to work. I don't know how.
It has to. It has to.
It has to.
Do you have any final thoughts?
I really appreciate you and your platform to be able to speak of this, and how it just happened so quickly and our thoughts are aligned and so forth. And I think it's a testament to the calling that, we can have been able to create this. So I just want to first thank you for the time and for your great questions. And I know I could hear other people going, I would have asked that. I wanted to know that, so thank you for that. I think if we really look at it, it goes back to the original message that I got today in church. And I would encourage people to get with God before they need him.
Yeah.
Get with God, just figure that out, have that connectedness, get with somebody. I'm very amateur on the Bible and church in general. I kind of got faith from this experience. They say that more prayers are said in the NICU than
So true.
than at church. And so, but I know that if I had this connection with God before the NICU, the experience would have been a lot different and probably a lot more peaceful. So if I could just throw out that message out to people, that's what it would be.
That's a great message. Thank you so much, Brian, for being here and sharing your story. It means a lot.
My pleasure. Thank you.